very warm welcome to Bharata First. I'm Pereira. You're watching the Discourse, and today we'll take up an interesting topic of freebies or poll promises and the impact that it has on the economy. Freebies or welfare schemes are not something that are new. They've been going on for a long time now, especially in India. But in the recent past, we've seen them reach new heights. For example, the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi, which decided to give free water and electricity to the citizens of Delhi. And more recently, the Congress party in Karnataka, which decided to give free electricity, free bus rides for women, as well as 2,000 rupees to every household. So to talk about this, to talk about what kind of an impact these poll promises really have on the economy, whether they are good, bad, ugly, that's what we're going to discuss in the discourse today. And I have lovely guests with me as well. Let me introduce Jayant Das Gupta, former ambassador of India at the WTO. He's also a retired IAS officer who's got years and years of experience with dealing on such kind of issues on the ground. Also with us is Bhanuchandran Nagarajan, former consultant of the World Bank, and he's also an advisor on several economic issues to the several ministries within the government as well as outside too. All right, Ambassador, let me start the program with you first. Let's first try and understand this trend of poll promises. Political parties promise the moon or whatnot, and then try to implement it as well. We've seen this taking place more often than not, at least over the last 4 or 5 years. How do you look at this trend?
Well, to start with, the first thing which comes to mind is the 2006 announcement by the DMK party at that time to provide color TVs. And after they won the election, they put in a budget proposal for 750 crores. Now, this was challenged by S. Subramaniam Balaji in the Tamil Nadu High Court, and it was dismissed. It was the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court. Then in 2011, the AIADMK decided to provide, amongst other things, electric fans, mixer grinders, 4-gram Mangal Sutras, 50,000 rupees for women who were about to get married, green houses for each costing 1.8 lakh rupees for householders who had at least 300 square feet of land already, and then cattle and sheep. Now, this was put forward in the budget speech in 2011-12, and it amounted to around 8,200 crore rupees. This was again challenged by Mr. Subramanian Balaji, and this was decided by the Tamil Nadu High Court, the Madras High Court, which looked at these measures against Section 123 of the Representation of the People Act, which talks of bribery during elections, during the election process. And the Madras High Court ruled that these measures did not constitute a violation of Section 123. So the petition by S. Subramanian Balaji was dismissed. Now, this has again been raised in 2022 by Ashwini Upadhyay in the Supreme Court of India. And it has been, amongst other things, there is a plea to reopen this S. Subramanian Balaji versus State of Tamil Nadu case to look at this issue afresh. Because there are many governments which have been doing this since 2006. And the impact of this has been felt in many ways. For instance, the commonest poll promise or freebie, which has been announced, and you mentioned the Aam Aadmi Party government, is free electricity. The Punjab government of the AAP announced 300 units of free electricity to householders. Now, the total amount which is outstanding to discoms, distribution companies of electricity across the country, is more than 2.5 lakh crores. And Tamil Nadu, of course, leads, according to some newspaper reports, its outstanding is about 11,900 odd crores. Now, every government has been indulging in this kind of a freebie. And there is a very interesting report which has come out from the RBI, which is titled, I'll just read it out, State Finances, a Risk Analysis. And that came out in 2022. It spoke about 5 states at least, West Bengal, Kerala, Punjab, Rajasthan, and Andhra Pradesh, which have given so many freebies just before the elections that it has, and they have, of course, continued with these freebies after the elections. So this has had a very, very adverse impact on the state's finances, especially in terms of restricting the state's ability to take up new welfare schemes. And here I would like to make a distinction between welfare schemes and freebies. As the RBI in its annual report of 2022 has mentioned, freebies are things which are selective, which provide certain gains to selected families or persons, and the effect does not, of course, last long. It has been estimated that a freebie effect, the economic impact, will work out in about 1 year's time. After that, it stops having an impact. Whereas a welfare scheme, especially if you provide free education or subsidized education, healthcare, better infrastructure, better electricity distribution, etc., those things have a much longer impact in terms of improving the productivity, improving the incomes of people, and overall, their impact is much longer lasting and much better. So the Reserve Bank in its analysis, I'll come back to this later, has said that first, the freebies should be stopped. It has only recommended. And the second thing is that the debt burden on account of fresh freebies being announced should not be allowed, and it should be kept under check. The debt burden should be brought down.
Absolutely. So we'll come back to the point that you're making about the distinction between freebies and welfare schemes as well a little later on in the program, Ambassador, and so that we can delve deeper into it. Let me bring in Bhanu Chandar Nagarajan into the picture now. Bhanu, as far as this trend is concerned, this trend of freebies, it seems to be a hit as far as the citizens are concerned. In Delhi, the public is very happy that electricity is free, water is free, and that is something that they can see on a month-on-month basis because the bills are reading zero. Same is the case in Karnataka as well. They seem to be very happy. So, but how would you look at this trend as far as the economic affairs of a state is concerned?
I look at this whole debate in terms of this aphorism, which says, give a man a fish and he eats for a day, and teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. So rate or freebies or unimaginative policy making, they are fiscally ruinous and morally corruptible. Yes, you're right that it has short-term benefits. People feel good about themselves or good about receiving benefits for a year, like what Mr. Dasgupta was saying. But it weans away because the opportunity cost of not investing in enabling goods or infrastructure, skills, etc., comes to the fore sooner than later. Mr. Dasgupta listed the list of infamy from my home state, Tamil Nadu, who has started this whole business of freebies, from Mangal Sutra to TVs to grinder to mixie, like you name it, like our government has given. But one point is, with respect to both Tamil Nadu and Delhi, they have very high per capita tax revenue. So it makes the effect of freebies felt less on the fiscal state of affairs compared to other states. For example, Punjab is now facing a huge issue because they are actually giving out freebies, and Punjab's, I think, debt to GDP was around 50%. This is apart from the guarantees, and you have to add another 1,000 basis points to approximately to cover for the guarantees and the debt of the state PSUs and so on. So it's a very high number. It is the highest, I think, in India. And if you look at the other fiscally responsible states like Kerala or West Bengal, it's between like 40 to 50%. So I think they are very high numbers. The other state that is actually was doing well is going down the ruinous path is Karnataka. They were doing very well, but now they are starting all of these schemes of free cash and like free bus rides and so on. So I think what is happening is this. Expenditure is good. The fiscally ruinous part is one part of it. For example, take Punjab. Punjab has 50% of its fiscal deficit spent on freebies alone. That could have been spent on infrastructure or like improving their agriculture infrastructure, especially given that it's an agriculture state, so on. So I think this culture has to be, and given that we are India is becoming a huge market, like we're going to be the third largest economy and so on. I think some of the chief ministers have still not gotten into this thinking of making for the world and like being more progressive, and they are still harping on to the old school of politics of giving away stuff and like feeding their ego and morally corrupting people. So I think sooner than later it will be felt on the state, which will lag in infrastructure and other abilities, and it will be fair politically. They will take a hit as well.
Absolutely. Let's hope that better sense prevails and we look at the bigger picture and move in that direction. But Mr. Dasgupta, coming back to you now, you are making a point about welfare schemes and freebies and how there is a clear distinction between the two. But let's also not forget that we have, I think, a few hundred too many welfare schemes as well in this country, 400 odd, since when I last counted, that was last year. So that's something that we need to keep an eye out for as well.
Yes, I agree with you. In fact, it is very difficult to draw a sharp line between what is a freebie and what is really a welfare scheme. The distinction gets blurred on the margins. Now, there is one scheme which many states have introduced, which is a free bicycle for girl students. Now, there are a number of studies which have shown that the dropout rates of girl children, especially in high schools, has dropped after this scheme was introduced. Similarly, there are schemes for free uniforms for school children, free books, and some states are even thinking of introducing breakfast apart from the midday meals the state government provides. So these are, these really speaking, because in the case of the midday meal scheme, it can be termed as a freebie, but the 20-kilogram rice for all households, irrespective of whether a household belong to the below poverty line family, as introduced in 2011 in Tamil Nadu, was considered to be a freebie. Now, midday meal scheme has proved that the dropout rate of children in primary schools has gone down, which is very significant, that it has attracted more girl children also, and that the nutritional status of children attending primary schools has improved somewhat. Of course, India is still the country which has the largest children, primary school children, who are either stunted or who have, are underweight. So there is this issue So it would be difficult to really market. But having said that, schemes which are sustainable, that is of great importance, as the Reserve Bank of India has also pointed out. Revenues are indeed increasing, but then you can't have implementation of all kinds of schemes. You have to be selective, and you have to select. One of the things which the Tamil Nadu, the Madras High Court cases brought up was this fact that there is this discrimination, on not very transparent or rational basis. And there was a violation of Article 14. Because there is this issue also that public funds should not be utilized for creating private assets, except in very exceptional circumstances, like providing a house to a homeless person or somebody who's living in a shanty or a thatched, unsafe house. And education for children, especially in the primary schools, where a child would, unless provided free education, would not go to school at all. So that is the kind of welfare scheme where it is, you can discriminate and you can provide private assets also, like bicycles or school uniforms or books and other things. And in the NREP, the Swarn Jayanti Gram Swaraj Yojana, and earlier on the Integrated Rural Development Program, which was implemented from the 1980s onwards, durable assets were given to families which were below the poverty line. For instance, cattle and sheep and goats were given indeed to beneficiaries through bank loans, which were subsidized. So welfare schemes, yes. Targeted welfare schemes, well-targeted welfare schemes, even much better. Sustainability has to be looked at, and I take the point that Mr. Bhanuchandra Nagarajan was making, just to give a flavor of where we are in terms of own tax revenue. Let's not talk of the devolution which is taking place through the Finance Commission of central and state collected or singly collected revenues. The state's own revenue, if you look at freebies announced in 22-23 as percentage of own tax revenue by states, Punjab has 45.4% of its revenue going to freebies. West Bengal 23.8%. Surprise, surprise. Madhya Pradesh 28.8%. Jharkhand 26.7% and Andhra Pradesh 30.3%. Now, there is another problem with a few states whose GSDP is increasing at a slower rate, but whose debt is increasing at a much faster rate. So it is clearly unsustainable. And some of these states are, again, Punjab, West Bengal, Rajasthan, Kerala, and Bihar. So their debt is unsustainable, because if you look at the financing of these freebies with, the center saying that, all right, you take a larger share of the divisible pool, but we will not fund to the same extent the welfare schemes which were earlier centrally sponsored or central sector schemes. So the states are now left with a larger amount of money, so to say, but also a much greater responsibility towards all their citizens. So if they are not choosy, if they distribute it indiscriminately, and that too to a section of the citizenry which is likely to vote for them, I think that is simply not sustainable, or morally defensible?
Absolutely. I think that's the big question, and that's the big aspect that needs to be addressed. And since we are here, Manu, let's try and address that as well. Has irreparable damage been done? How do we reverse this? Can it be reversed? Because the citizens have now got a taste of something new, and it's going to be very difficult to take that away from them, because they are going to be disgruntled and they're going to be upset.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, we can speak about Tamil Nadu in this regard. See, Tamil Nadu's GDP is around 24 lakh crores, okay, and the total debt is around 7.5, 8 lakh crores, around around the 30% mark, okay. Of this 8 lakh crores, 1.5 lakh crores is the power sector debt, okay, and this is the highest power sector debt in all of India, okay. And this has been accumulating over a period of time. And there was this scheme Ujala, I think, where the central government tried to take the debt, and they were trying to clean up the balance sheets, so on. That did not work. They are now, like, the government in Tamil Nadu, no government, both ADMK or DMK, is able to reverse the power freebies. So yeah, it has been like what you said. It has been one of those cases that the governments, once they have announced it, they are not able to reverse it. And it has been like a news around Tamil Nadu's neck, which is doing quite well otherwise. So yeah, the irreversible part is something that needs to look at. On this power sector, like, there are other ways of doing it. Say how Gujarat did it, like from 2000 on. Say they had separate meters for farming, and there was a subsidized power given to agriculture, and there was the non-subsidized power given to general public, and so on. So they were very creative in managing the debt. Okay, and it's not that, like, they were not willing to give some incentives, but it was like what Mr. Dasgupta was mentioning. They made it sustainable. So these are creative ways in which things could be done. I'll give you another example. Recently, the central government, the PM, announced the Vishwakarma scheme, right? It's going to be like they're going to make a big deal on September 17th, on Prime Minister's birthday. 13,000 crores have been announced. In this, like, they were not actually doling out equipments or like anything like that. They were giving soft loans. They were giving money to for skill development and so on, right? So the enabling infrastructure, having some Jan Bhagidari built into the scheme by way of like giving soft loans. These are the things that actually not only make public policy more sustainable and inclusive, but also, like, like what Mr. Dasgupta was mentioning, like, you make it morally okay. Like, you're not like throwing away the actual taxpayers' money. So you give that responsibility not only in policy making, but also to the recipients, that it is somebody's money and use it carefully. So yeah, I mean, it could be done creatively. And like what I said, it's about the mindset of old school politicians who have no other way of thinking through things. Also, one point is, if you are an opposition politician to a party that is actually doing these incentives, to differentiate themselves, they have to like do something different, right? So that's also a factor that needs to be factored in when you think about a big picture perspective.
Absolutely. All right, time to get quick closing comments now from both the panelists with the best way forward and what next. Starting first with you, Mr. Dasgupta.
Well, the Supreme Court, while hearing the Chief Justice at that time was hearing this petition of Mr. Ashwini Upadhyay, and there were other interventions also from Mr. Arvind Datar, who had a Supreme Court advocate, who had earlier represented S. Subramanian Balaji versus Tamil Nadu. In that, he had represented S. Subramanian Balaji. Now, the Chief Justice said that there are a large number of issues which are getting raised. So he set up a 3-member bench. He requested, I think, yeah. Anyway, a 3-member bench was set up to go into this matter in depth, because after a while, the Supreme Court realized that asking the Election Commission of India to give a ruling on election freebies, or the Controller and Auditor General, because they have the right to go into all expenditure incurred by the government in whatever form, even before the expenditure is incurred. That was found to be impractical. So they set up this 3-member panel, which I don't know whether it has really resumed its hearings after 2022 December or so. But nothing is coming out of the Supreme Court in this regard. So that is one point, that asking for the judiciary to lay down the guidelines and expecting that to be followed sincerely by political parties who have other means of circumventing such orders is not going to be very fruitful. Second point, the most important point, is political parties have to have a gentleman's agreement that nobody will indulge in election freebie announcements, if possible. And that will be the tough nut to crack, whether all parties come together and realize that it is something which is unsustainable. It can only lead to the huge restriction on real welfare schemes for the benefit of large numbers of people. So that is the only way, I think, in which we can proceed forward.
I like that you added, if possible, Mr. Das Gupta, because that's the big issue, whether or not it is going to happen. Because a gentleman's agreement is something that is going to be very far from any of the politicians. But let's hope that some kind of change comes about as far as the political class is concerned as well. We've been talking about administrative reforms. We've been talking about police reforms. I think the need of the hour is political reforms, and that is what we need. Right, Bhanuchandar, please close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Mr. Dasgupta was very erudite when he was laying out the legal aspect of things. I believe that the solution, I don't think a solution is even possible. At least the progress depends in the administrative and political side of things. Administratively, I think there are going to be more discussions in Niti Aayog, in the PM's coordination meeting with the chief ministers, even finance commission. And also politically, there's going to be a vigorous debate. And also, as I said, there is a lag in feeling the effect of this Revdi culture. It is going to be felt by a few states. So I think politically and administratively, I think the debate is going to be carried forward. But like what Dasgupta was mentioning, even the definition of what a freebie is sort of not very clear. So this debate will go forward. We cannot expect a solution, but I think there will be some progress in the way forward. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, let's hope for the best and be positive and optimistic as far as this is concerned, because several financial agencies are calling this the golden moment for India. India is growing well, and India is still a bright spot, is what World Bank and others are calling us. So let's hope that we put our best foot forward and take things towards the right way. All right, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of the Discourse. Thank you to both my guests, Mr. Dasgupta and Bhanu, for joining me on the program and sharing your views and putting things into perspective for us. Much appreciate your time. Thank you.